So good morning or good day, good evening, everybody, wherever you on the planet, and welcome to the session, on engineering education research. My name is Johan Malmqvist. I'm a professor in product development from Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg, and I will be the chair of this session. And we have two very interesting papers lined up. A paper on oral group examination by two professors from Aarhus University in Denmark, Karin Stenderup and Sanne Overby, and one on self-efficacy and locus of control by two researchers from Jönköping University in Sweden, Gesa Fischel and Bengt Erlandsson. So the design of the session is that we will first play pre-recorded presentations from these two teams of researchers. You will listen to them, watch them, of course, and if you want to, you can pose questions in the chat already whilst listening. And that will take about 20 minutes. And after that, there is a discussion. So there was just in plenum, and you can ask questions to the researchers, or you can bring up new topics and make comments, of course. So by that, let's listen to the talks and make comments in the chat, and then we'll continue discussion afterwards. So please go ahead.
Dear Organizing Committee, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our work. In this presentation, we would like to share with you a highly structured oral group examination method that we have developed to evaluate collaborative and individual learning. The idea to develop a highly structured oral group examination method came from a course that Sanne and I teach every spring semester in Statistics and Design of Experiments. We teach this course at the Institute of Biotechnology and Chemistry at Aarhus University, Denmark, and our students are biotechnological and chemical engineering students. Our challenge was that the former individual oral exam did not align well with all learning outcomes of the course. In fact, half of the learning outcomes focused on individual learning in basic statistics, taught by giving lectures and helping students solve assignments individually. The other half focus on collaborative learning via a problem-based learning activity where the students work in groups on a project within Design of Experiments. Thus, our challenge was to combine assessment of individual and collaborative skills in one exam without creating more exams or increasing demands on academic staff. In Denmark, group exams were banned by the government from 2006 until 2013. It was thought that low-performing students were awarded grades that were too high, and high-performing students were awarded grades that were too low. Consequently, both students and examiners became unfamiliar with group exams. The aim of the present study was to develop an exam where the best of the individual exam and the former group exam were combined. The exam should be able to assess both individual and collaborative learning skills. Also, it should include the ability to detect free riders. On top of that, our aim was to develop an exam where it is possible to address several taxonomic levels on learning in a highly structured fashion. And of course, we wanted to achieve all of this without increasing demands on academic staff. Our solution was a highly structured oral group examination method split into 3 parts. Here we have part 1, here we have part 2, and here we have part 3. The last part is showing the students receiving grades and feedback. At all times, 2 academic staff members are present, one functioning as an examiner and the other as a co-examiner. Also, all group members are present during all parts. The total examination time is 20 minutes, allocated per student, times the number of students in a group. Thus, with a group of 4 students, the total examination time is 1 hour and 20 minutes. Part 1 mimics a classical group exam, where there is a discussion among students and examiner. In this part, the students' collaborative skills are evaluated. The discussion is based on the problem-based learning activity that the students have collaborated on during the semester. The students discuss how they applied their knowledge, which obstacles they have encountered, what choices they have made, and how they analyzed their data. To keep track of each individual student's contribution, we use a student scoring sheet. At the top, the names of all students are written, and for each discussion question and learning objective, it is possible to add a note for each student on how they perform and respond. After part 1, all students leave the room and the examiners are left with a first impression of the students' learning skills. Between part 1 and 2, there is a short intermission, where the students are not present. In this intermission, the examiners perform a midway evaluation. This evaluation enables the examiners to decide on a strategy on how to proceed. If there seems to be a high-performing student, the upcoming questions in the individual part should reflect this by being more complex. On the contrary, if there seems to be a low-performing student, the questions should start off being more simple. We find this intermission very valuable, as we are able to tailor the questions a bit before the individual examination part. In part 2, all students have re-entered the room. Part 2 mimics an individual exam, where one student is examined at a time. In this part, the students' individual skills are evaluated and possibly free riders are detected. Prior to the individual examination, the students choose a random question from a pool of questions addressing basic statistics. During this individual examination, the student may ask the other students for help. The other students are allowed to help by providing hints or rephrasing questions. It's not allowed to provide actual answers. This hopefully helps the student, but also demonstrates to the examiner that other students have knowledge about this question. Again, to keep track of the student's contribution, we continue filling out the student scoring sheet. Also, in the sheet, we note the chosen question and keep track of time by recording time of start and time of finish. After part 2, there is a direct transition to part 3. Part 3 is allocated to give the students the opportunity to reflect and even create new knowledge. This examination part is led by the examiner and allows for the students to take the knowledge discussions even further, as other group members are present to contribute to the discussion and possibly fill in the potential knowledge gaps. Again, to keep track of the student's contribution, we keep on filling in the student scoring sheet. To sum up, we have focused on evaluating different skills in each of the 3 examination parts. In part 2, we have focused on the more fundamental learning skills, remembering and understanding. In part 1, we have focused on application and analysis, and in part 3, we make room for the students to evaluate their own knowledge and possibly create new knowledge. Thus, in a highly structured manner, we aim to address different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. After parts 1 to 3, the students leave the room once again, and the examiners perform a last evaluation. For this part, the student scoring sheet becomes really valuable. There are notes for each student contribution, for each part of the exam, and this sums up to a final individual grade for each student. In conclusion, we find that the oral group examination method is a valuable tool when dealing with courses including both collaborative and individual learning. If you would like to try out this examination form, we recommend that you inform the students about the group exam at the beginning of the course, conduct a small-scale trial exam in class during the course, practice giving hints and rephrasing questions to fellow students, include 4 students per group, 3 is okay, 4 is better, and 5 are too many. At the exam, you should ask the students to raise their hand if they have an answer, and you should not reveal the individual question prior to actual examination, as the students will concentrate on their own question and lose focus on helping their fellow students. And finally, the greatest benefits for us have been the extended examination time provided by having all students present at all times, and the possibility to address different taxonomic learning levels in a highly structured fashion. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so there's a question from Jens. Did we evaluate the students' views on the format? And yes, we did. We had 142 students, and they all filled in a questionnaire after the exam. And we compared the exam to the previous exam, and they all were very pleased about this exam. So yes, we did evaluate the format.
Can I just ask you to hold on for a second here, because I thought that we were going to have both presentations and then discussion. So I would just want to check that with the hosts, because then we have another video to listen to, and then we'll get back to your question, and you can answer it in more detail. So could the host please play the second presentation as well? This should be yours, Gesa.
Yeah, I think because they haven't located my presentation, but I can play it, and that's what in the private
in that case,
chat.
if you can play it from your own site, I think that would be what needs to be done now, so that we can. Well, I think you're a co-host.
Yeah.
So you should be able to share your screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Geza Official. I'm going to talk about design exercise strategy for locus of control and self-efficacy. This study was done together with Bengt Erlandsson. We are both teachers at Jönköping University. Our investigation started 3 years ago, and actually it's well documented in the CDIO conferences. Our interest was to fine-tune our existing architecture engineering program and develop a sense of urgency for changing it. This paper focuses on the next stage, which was the change management. It is aimed to create a method for solving design problems by planning a small individual design exercise as a mental reward mechanism for students to boost their internal locus of control and self-efficacy. This was extra curriculum, which meant that students needed extra time for producing information for us and also developing their design ability. Background of locus of control and self-efficacy, both are derived from social learning theory, and in that case they have many commonalities, although locus of control is more about personal traits, which can be either internally or externally driven. Externally is much more like fate, luck, and maybe teacher opinion. Meanwhile, self-efficacy is much more related to emotional arousal and its personal competency, perception of personal competency. The difference is also seen in terms of societal level, where locus of control is more effective, and the individual proximity, which is how close to the individual certain events are affecting individual perception of one's ability. The method was mainly quantitative, but we also used the reflection of the workshop teacher, who was Bengt Erlandsson. Altogether, 16 participants graduated from this extracurriculum, and those were the recorded ones. We measured locus of control on Noviky Strickland test. We developed an online survey form on individual learning styles and an adapted academic self-efficacy scale. And also there was the reflection from the teacher. The exercise or extracurriculum was given in 2020 February, which meant we had 1 month to complete this exercise, and just before the pandemic was announced. And therefore the rest of the planned design exercises were cancelled due to quite an enormous job change and procedure change in our education. In that case, the result shows that locus of control and the project undefined defined category, there are 4 main categories here: uncomfortable, comfortable, creative, and performative brackets or quadrants. And these ones we have been practicing over the years how to put up our students, individual students' performance. And right now you see a quite scattered diagram, which is the most uncomfortable place is for 4 or 5 students or 6 students is the highly undefined project without teacher support. That's perceived as a least uncomfortable, and the performative and the creative groups are approximately the same in this cohort. There has been some significant correlations found, and also some mentionable mean variances. In terms of learning style performance preference, it became a little bit to the more undefined value, which means that students were getting familiar and starting to enjoy an undefined project rather than getting always a predefined project with ready answers and strong teacher support. In that case, the locus of control slightly moved to internal measure, although it's still very much in the ambivalent or in the between internal and external, and some correlation were found between locus of control and self-efficacy measurements like self-engagement, self-oriented decision-making, and others-oriented problem-solving. The reflection about the students and the teacher engagement. So how the teachers see self-engagement of the students were encouraged to start with analyzing the lobby space, find problems, and start conceptualizing and problem solving to come up with one solution that would be developed and presented with drawings, mood boards, and renderings. After the introduction, most students looked for more instruction from a teacher, showing signs of uncertainty and inability to perform the task. With intentionally little or no guidance to the problem-solving process, many participants couldn't continue and dropped out of the workshop. And that sounds very harsh, but the idea was that students should be highly motivated in order to participate in this exercise. And according to the reflections, students were driven by different self-motivation. Others were inspired to complete the project and thus motivated by their goals to receive the diploma and reward for completing the workshop, because this can be a very good tool for adding to their work portfolio. The remainder of the participants were struggling with the idea of individual self-performance and questioned their problem-solving ability. Since our courses are having some design participation, therefore we thought this workshop is a good tool to enhance this individual design ability and increase self-motivation in terms of design. The discussion here shows that a decrease in participants were shown, and most probably this was due to the uncompleted post measures, because we had the pre and the post measures, and those who haven't completed and haven't complied fully with the research objectives, they were not considered for diploma either. The pre-intervention locus of control indicated that the students were used to more prescribed assignments, requiring more input from the workshop teacher. The post-intervention measures and locus of control efficacy factors did not show a significant correlation, and even the self-oriented decision-making factor decreased. That's an interesting result, and the students worked in groups rather than, sorry, I cannot see the rather than individual as it was introduced. Consequently, the part of the self-oriented decision-making skill is likely to suffer from the lack of individual decision-making. The measurement methods employed were partially untested. The self-efficacy measures were not gathered through focus group interviews as we did earlier studies, but a novel measurement scale adopted to this study. And that's also a question how reliable and valid it is. It's a new questionnaire that has been adapted to this study. Learning style ratings on scale from defined project to undefined seem to be an effective tool to describe the preference variation. Students traditionally requiring lots of support from the teachers when completing an assignment-based project. Meanwhile, the more open project-based design exercises are fostering creativity and contribute to an increase in self-efficacy. Learning from this lecture, this paper to the next exercise might be that clear instruction must be given to students in order not to give them the option of overestimating their strengths in participation. And conclusion, this investigation strengthened the assumption that a small design workshop promoted student self-efficacy and internal locus of control and learning styles to a more undefined preference, which is a good one in our case. And this activity increased the level of enjoyment with design workshop. The hypothesis regarding a more internal locus of control would contribute to a higher self-efficacy proved right at the pre-intervention phase. That needs to be more discussion and investigation in larger studies. Further investigation should entail larger sample and participants for a more comprehensive design exercise battery that follows individual and group decision-making processes. The measurement instrument on locus of control, self-efficacy, and learning style seems still relevant for the architecture engineering domain characterization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gesa. So there we've listened to the two presentations, both very interesting and with an interesting link, I think, between learning how to do statistics and research planning, and then on the other hand, carrying out a research study, which is seems to be very challenging from a statistics point of view. So it would be interesting to discuss whether the students from Aarhus have the skills to carry out this second one in a way, I suppose. But we can start with some of the questions that are in the chat already to Karin and Sanne. And I think that it was Jens Bennesen that first asked, did you evaluate the students' views on the format? Karin, Sanne, do you want to continue your answer, so to speak?
Yes, we were. Actually, I would like to share my screen if that's possible, because I can really follow up on Jens's question, because we did a survey on this.
Yes, can Karin be made a co-host, please, so she can share?
I can tell you, Jens, that after the students left the exam, they were presented to a questionnaire, and they had to answer.
Here you are, yeah.
Okay, so I can share now. So they had to answer 5 different questions. I hope you can see my screen now. With
yes.
There's a table, so there's questions 1 through 5. So the first question they had to answer was, did they have ample opportunity to say what they wanted? Because that's always a concern when you have a group exam. Do all students have enough time to say what they want and so that their teachers can hear what they're saying? And here you can see if they had no difference, that's the middle bar here. And together, these 142 students asked that they had a feeling that they had ample opportunity to say what they wanted. So the next question was, is there support in receiving, answering, and questions as a group? So did they feel they were treated okay, having all these questions posed to the whole group in one and not just individually? And again, they answered that this was, they felt great support being there as a group. And question 3, did it feel comfortable receiving individual questions in front of the other group members? Of course, this can create some anxiety if students are having an exam in front of other students, because there is part 2 is an individual part. But again, the mean answer was that they did feel comfortable receiving questions like this. And also they get these hints from the fellow students. So if they stop in the middle of the exam, they can get hints and help. And that for a lot of the students, that is really a good help. And we also asked them if they thought the examination form was fair. And we got a response that they felt that it was fair. Then we compared, the last question is concerning if they prefer this examination method in comparison with the project exam that we usually have. Usually we have a project exam where they present their study and then we have them individually for examination. And here they're more or less, they like this exam as much as the other exam. So I hope that is fulfilling your question, Jens. Sen, I don't know if you would like to contribute.
Some of the students gives us some oral feedback after the exams, and especially the students that are very nervous for exams. They say that they like this format very much because they have the other group members to support them.
Thank you, and we saw a thumbs up from Jens, so we conclude that he was happy with the account there. So thanks. So we can move on, and this is a question from Prabhat De Silva. Did you eliminate other forms of exams completely, written exams, etc.?
Yeah, we wanted to have an oral exam as we are doing problem-based learning during the course. So we need to be able to discuss with the students. So written exams were not an option. We discussed if we should have written exams on the individual questions, but that would go against our goal with not adding too much work to the examiners.
Prabhat, are you happy with that answer?
Yes, just can I ask just one more thing? Probably I didn't get it. The students ask the students questions also? The students can ask the other students questions?
No, they help each other. When we are evaluating one student, they get a question, and if they don't have the answer to the questions, they can ask their group members, can you give me a little hint?
Okay.
And then they can help each other that way.
Okay, thank you.
And that's really nice to see, because the students really help each other to raise to a higher level. It's beautiful when we see it.
Yeah, and sometimes a little hint is enough, and sometimes it's just because the way we ask the questions, they didn't quite understand what we wanted them to talk about.
There was nothing negative. I mean, it looks like everybody was happy with this type of questioning. Nobody has any other negative thing from the student side?
And I can say that one of the reasons we also did this very structured examination method was because we had a lot of students. So we need to have a very structured format to go through 150 students every year.
So that nicely brings us to the next question. Yes, Prabhat, we have a number of people in the queue here, so we'll get back to you when we have time. Anyway, there's a question on the class size here from Marta Ormazabal. Karin, thank you for your presentation. Do you think that oral group examination in a class of 200 students can be convenient? Wouldn't that be too time consuming for the teacher?
I can tell you that this year we have 100 students, and we're in the middle of it. And I think is it 5 days, Sanne, that we have?
Yeah, 5 days. Yeah.
And you can do the numbers, because it's 4 students, 20 minutes per student, and so it's 1 hour and 20 minutes for a group of 4 students, and it's from 8 till 4 every day, 5 days for 100 students. So you can do the math.
Yeah,
but
it is possible.
Yeah, it's the same as having individual oral exams as we did previously.
Yeah, and I think that for instance, if it was a written exam, I wouldn't be able to read all the answers per students in 20 minutes and give them feedback and a grade in 20 minutes per students. So yeah, but 200, it's possible, but it's a lot of days.
Yeah. But having all students present at the same time in a group, we really get around the project. It's not just 20 minutes of repeated questions. We really get to discuss the whole project, and we have a lot of time to do it seems.
Yeah. I can tell you that last year during COVID-19, we didn't do the exam as we do normally. We had to do a multiple choice question, and it was not the same. I don't think it's possible to examine problem-based learning by a multiple choice questionnaire. We don't get the discussion with the students.
Very good, Marta. Is that an answer to your question?
Yes, thanks a lot for that.
Thanks a lot. And then we have Christina Edström, who has a question, but probably wants to phrase it herself. Christina?
Yeah, it was not so easy to phrase. I'm very interested in the nature of learning that you think you can assess when you have the students as a group in front of you, that you could not assess with each student individually. What are the qualities? What are the actual learning outcomes that you are looking for when you put them together?
It's the discussion among the students. So we try to address different levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. And there's the individual part, which is the basic learning, understanding and remembering. But when we get to the discussion, the last part, the third part, we really need the different students to be present, because some students have some knowledge, other students have another knowledge. And when you combine this knowledge and they help each other, when there's knowledge gaps present, they really support each other, and you get this very fruitful discussion among the students to see how they work in this problem-based manner. And that's very, very fruitful.
Yeah. And during the course, they have worked on a project where they have built on the knowledge they have gained in the teaching. So what we want to see, what we want to examine in the exam is how they apply that knowledge together, how they support each other, and we can do that through the discussion.
So just how do you record that in your scoring sheet?
That's why we have a scoring sheet, because there's a lot of answers and a lot of students, and we really need to note who said what and who didn't say what, because at the end of the exam we have to give an individual grade. So we are really dependent on this scoring sheet, because one of us is asking questions and the other one is really writing a lot of notes.
So do you note when they are helping each other, or when they are pushing the discussion further? So it's not just the student who got the question, but also how the others are behaving.
Yes, exactly.
So it's collaborative behavior showing a higher level of understanding. Or...
And also how they give each other hints, and who did is it always the same person giving the good hints? We note that too.
Yeah, because you can't give hints unless you understood the topic.
Yes, I'm going to let you have one more question on your paper first now, and but then we'll open for questions also on the second paper, and then we can return to your paper, obviously, if there is more time. But the next question in line is from Ngog Gl. Karin, how do you detect free riders?
That's very easy. They present themselves. They answer the questions in different directions. It's very easy to see. Don't you agree, Sanne?
Yes, I do. Especially they have signed in a report. And for instance, if we ask, where can we see this result in your reports? And if they're not even able to give us the number of the figure or the page number, they are easy to detect. Yeah.
So thank you very much for now. But let's also talk about the other paper. Do we have any questions or comments for Gesa?
Yeah, I can see one. What is the most surprising findings of your research? Well, so far, I think the most surprising that we put together locus of control and project, the defined and undefined project, and how these quadrants are built up. And we are experimenting with that one quite a lot. And it seems like it's a good mapping tool for getting a hint where the students are located, who are the free riders in that case, which usually find projects in a very difficult, and those which are coupling up with another student, and they are also not presenting individual solutions. And the idea is to strengthen the individual process. And because we have this project-based evaluation almost the whole program, and that one is a little bit difficult to figure out who can do what. And that's why we are trying to fine-tune also our program with different exercises. Yeah.
Was that an answer, Jens? We assume so, and then Christina Edström has a question for Gesa about is about locus of control.
Yeah, I was very fascinated by the theory, and I'm not very familiar with it at all. Could you say something about the locus of control model? What I mean, how can you use that to improve education? What are the aspects that this model suggests are more valuable for education?
I think, well, there are many studies done in educational context in terms of locus of control. And it's been developed from the 60s already. So there are really a huge library of information about it. I can say that in terms of education and how the individual development of the students is progressing over the years, it is important to know that we observe that from very much teacher dependent and teacher driven problem solving to a more internal and more self-reliant problem solving process is needed. And that is very much in line with the CDIO concept. This is very much in line of developing competence, developing critical thinking, and this locus of control is one measure of such a thing. And because locus of control and self-efficacy has the same origin in social learning theory, and we were experimenting in this study like how these two can be matched, because self-efficacy is very much on the proximity, on the how close this problem gets to the person, how the problem is solved by internal motivation, or how the person can be sure that this person can do the design exercise. And we are just experimenting with design exercise. This could be done with any other examination forms as well. And we are interested in matching our expectations, not just the learning outcomes of the course, but also our expectation towards the students in terms of critical thinking, curiosity, and competitiveness. So I don't know whether I answered exactly your answer, but this is what
Do you allow
we
me
are aiming
a follow-up question?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes I think with this kind of theory and many others, there is a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. Like, were the students successful because they had a better locus of control, or did they get a better locus of control because the teaching was good? I mean, is it a prerequisite for good teaching, or is it a result of good teaching?
I think the locus of control itself, it's very much also relying upon the social context. So it's teaching is, if we are lucky, but let's say in the university world, if the student comes into the course and goes out from the course as nothing happened in terms of locus of control, then might be, and it's a design course, then the design course was not effective, I would say. So the design itself has to promote internal locus of control. It has to build this strategy that the student is relying on his or her abilities and going after the project and investigating by himself, which in turn will affect the locus of control. So it's an interesting, yes, it's an interesting chicken and hen. But what I can say, my son used to say, which one was first, the chicken or the hen, or the egg and the chicken? And he says dinosaurs. So the question is, I think, a little bit deeper than just that.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank
and
you
we have another question here from Sharon Yap. Thank you, Geza. Did you perceive any difference between how students responded to or how they demonstrated internal locus of control and external locus of control?
I think that would have been to evaluate their design perspective, their design project, and that has not been done, not in this study.
So I have one question for you, Geza, as well, and that is, you reported on the study as it was done last year, and then you could only make 1 out of 4 exercises in a series.
Yes.
So maybe you have some fresh insights from this year if you were able to do a more complete version of the assignment, and in that case, what
we are
able to see stronger effects or so forth?
Sorry, we are planning to do this in a new series after the COVID situation is changed.
It was more if you had tinkered away something that many of us have done with other things that we couldn't quite do in COVID as we would have otherwise.
No, it was the COVID situation was very challenging for education and putting everything in digital. Instead, we focused on other design courses instead than extracurriculum activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Geza? Okay, then thank you for now, and then we'll open up the floor for further questions to Karin and Sanne, or general remarks if you want to.
May I have a question to Karin and Sanne?
Absolutely, please.
You were teaching, or you were examining statistical knowledge, right?
Yeah.
In a qualitative way.
Yeah, so it's both the basic statistics and also the process of design of experiments, BOE. So it's a two-in-one course.
It's as it seems, it's very time consuming, and I think you were much more interested in how the dynamics are there within students, and how students are actually conducting themselves in a situation where the written exam is not a question now. Why did you choose this method? Because I think most of the time statistics are seen as a quantitative evaluation.
Well, actually, there's a lot of different learning goals. Some of them are individual, some of them are collaborative. So we need an exam that covers both collaborative and individual learning. So part 2 of the exam is concerning the individual goals, and that's the individual goals on basic statistics. And then part 1 is the collaborative goals, and then we've added this third part where we can really try to assess creation and evaluation of own knowledge. So it's very, very structured, and each part of the exam is addressing different learning goals. So it's not just collaboration, because part 1 is mostly individual goals.
And it's because in the course, when we teach the course, we are very focused on the application of statistics, how to use statistics. And our philosophy is that it is easier to learn statistics if you know, if you are put in a situation where you have to use it, then it's easier to understand it. So we try to.
Thank you very much. That's nice.
So thank you, and we can continue discussion. We have another question from the chat to Karin and Sanne from Anna Valencia. I am wondering, Karin, Sanne, whether you evaluate only at the end of the course/project or whether you also have an interim evaluation, and what would your recommendation be on this?
You could have a lot of evaluations, but it's also a matter of time consumed. So how much time are we given to perform the evaluations? And for each student, we're given 20 minutes. That's it. So we're trying to do as much as possible in the amount of time that we're giving for this evaluation. They hand in a report during the course, and they have a lot of supervision on how to write this report. But it's not an evaluation. The evaluation is only at the end of the course. But I guess you could add a lot of interim evaluations. But that's not. We don't have that in this course. We just have a final evaluation.
Thank you. May I follow up on that question, actually?
Please do.
Well, thank you again for the reply. And the reason why I'm asking is because in the projects that we do, that it's challenge-based learning, what we have also observed is that when you are assessing the softer or broader professional skills like collaboration and reflection, it helps actually to have an interim evaluation, because then you can help the students in identify strategies and to improve in those skills. So that was where the question was coming from. And I was wondering if you had observed the same things, whether it is advisable to actually have more of these evaluation moments, not on the individual learning goals as you state for the content knowledge, but more on the broader professional skills, if you will.
Yeah, thank you for your question and remarks. Maybe we should consider that, Sanne.
Yeah.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Thanks.
So thank you very much. I think we don't have any more questions in the chat unless I'm missing something. So are there any further questions or comments in the room?
May I ask a quick one? When you interview the 4 students, the other students are present in the class, or just individual? I mean, only you pick 4 and put them in a classroom separately. Is that the way it's done?
Yeah. The 4 persons, they have been working together on the projects, and they are the only students in the room.
Okay.
At that time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
very
these
much.
four students have written a project together too, which they have handed in. So they have been used to collaborating for the whole semester.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our time is approaching the end, but we might have time for one quick question if someone wants to get in the final question for the session.
Yeah, can I was actually shocked when you said, Karin, that you have 20 minutes per student for assessing a long course like that. Who sets those limits? Who decides how much time you use for teaching, how much time you use for assessment?
That's our that's a university. There's 20 minutes for examination per student. That's it says in the course description. And I do agree with you, 20 minutes, that's not a very long time.
And I think you probably spend more than 20 minutes, because you have to create this system, you have to plan it, you have to carry it out. So there is overhead around those.
Exactly. Yeah. And we also have to read the reports.
So you're not actually doing 20 minutes either.
Oh, I guess we use a little more.
So I'm going to thank you there, because we need to be able to have a break before the next session. I'm sure that this last question can spill over into a good coffee room discussion if there is one. But thank you so much to the presenters. Thank you so much to the audience as well that supplied the good questions. I think this was a very interesting and nice session. Good start to the conference. So Thank you very much now. Have a short break and we'll meet again in some other session in 10 minutes time. Thank you all.
Thank you.